Alright, so I'm going to start off teaching you how I made my apple purse. The base shape is cut out of flooring foam that I got from Home Depot. This is the same as Eva foam. So I cut out a few variations of circle sizes and stacked them on each other until I got around the tallness and width of the apple I was looking for. And the middle sections of the purse that open up and create a little tiny storage area that really doesn't hold anything, but it is a good idea. They were made by taking an 1.5 inch strip of Eva foam and gluing it around one of the edges of the circle of the top and the bottom. I then glued them all together with contact cement and started to trim them down both with a knife and with a Dremel until they got to the right basic shape. And I didn't film this part, but I just used some wall putty to fill in some of the really large gaps between the cracks on the foam base. Then I covered the entire top and bottom with Worbla. This clasp is taken off of this little wooden box that I got from Michael's, and I'm just drilling it into the Worbla, which was strong enough to hold it. The front lock was also taken off of that same wooden box I got from Michael's. Now you can see my apple is not very smooth, and I'm not even priming it before I paint it with some red acrylic paint. But in the end, after I covered the whole thing in rhinestones, I do admit I should have made the surface a little bit more even. Starting with a smoother surface would have made the final result look a lot better. And now I'm just making a simple handle for the purse. This is made just with some thin crafting wire and some pearl beads and some little gold ring beads that I picked up from Michael's as well. I just drilled a small tiny hole on each side of the purse small enough for the wire to poke through, and I bent it up on the inside of the purse and glued it into place to make sure it wouldn't fall out. I'm also making a small little leaf detail for the top of the purse. I used the same thin crafting wire and some variation of green beads I got in a pack and just filled them up on the wire in the shape of a leaf, and I took 2 smaller little V pieces and filled them up with beads as well and soldered them into place on the bigger outside shape. I made a little stem out of just rolled up old Worbla, and I was able to poke the leaf through that stem, glue it in place, and I also covered that stem with the same green beads. And obviously you can see that I did not film myself gluing the rhinestones onto the purse. It was a very simple process, but it literally took forever. And by forever, I probably want to say anywhere between 9 to 10 hours of just gluing on little red rhinestones. I don't even remember how many I used. I want to say it was probably around 2,000 of little tiny rhinestones on this apple purse. Oh, but the way it glitters is so pretty. It was totally worth it. Alright, on to making a cute little bow headband. I am using a red silk that was left over from making my sleeves, and I'm just cutting a little inch strip and sewing and gluing it into a bow shape. With that same red fabric, I made an inch wide tube and strung a headband through that and sewed the ends shut. I then got a variety of flowers from Michael's, and I just hand sewed them onto the headband in places that I thought looked best. As a final touch to my fancy Snow White, I decided to add a crown to the headband. To make the crown, I just rolled out pieces of old Worbla and fitted them around a template, and I made 4 of these pieces. And with more strips of smaller rolled Worbla, I decorated each of these with little like vine looking shapes and swirls and just made them look pretty and even. And finally, the 4 crown pieces just got stuck to a single ring. And then I primed all of that with wood glue, and then I painted it gold. I also superglued some gold beads and used string to tie on some dangly ones all over the crown just to give it that extra oomph. And it was at this moment that I decided the bow also needed to have rhinestones glued all over it so it could match the sparkliness of the crown. I then bought a little hair comb to keep the crown in place. I sewed that on to the outside just with some needle and thread, and then I sewed the other side of the crown onto the headband itself. To add some detail, I made an apple out of clay and covered it with red rhinestones and some extra green beads for the stem. I then took apart an old gold necklace for the chain and attached that chain to the apple. And lastly, I decided I needed to add just a little bow on my shoes the way hers does in the cartoon. So I just used some extra gold fabric that I had from my sleeves, tied it into a bow, and then sewed it onto the shoe. And I also added a little pearl that was from the handle of the purse. And that was it. I specifically bought these shoes because they were gold and glittery and comfortable, and all they needed was a little bow. Alright, so that covers all of the accessories that I made to go with my Snow White cosplay. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more tutorials and vlogs, and I'll see you next time. Bye!